Margaret, do stop staring out the window and pay attention to your geography lessons, please. Miss Jane Halliwell, governess to the only daughter of Viscount and Lady Guildford, was fond enough of her 16-year-old charge, but she was all but convinced that the girl's talents lay in something other than book learning. Jane had been with the family for only 6 months, but in that time she'd grown to like the girl, who was lively and good-natured and would make a splash on the marriage mart when she debuted a few years from now, but she was simply not interested in her studies. Even so, Jane had been hired to educate her, and she would try her best to do that. "But how am I meant to pay attention to boring old geography when there is so much going on out there?" sighed Meg, not even bothering to turn away from the schoolroom window. "Come and see for yourself." Jane hadn't yet succumbed to the temptation to peer out at the statesmen and dignitaries who, along with their wives, were arriving at the Guildford townhouse in Belgrave Square for a week-long symposium on advances in horticulture around the world. In addition to his illustrious career first as a diplomat, then as an administrator in the Foreign Office, Lord Guildford was also noted for his rose garden, and had seen this as an opportunity to bring nations that were frequently at odds together through their love of plants. As the only child of a diplomat herself, Jane was familiar with all sorts of costumes and customs that would no doubt fascinate Margaret. But having travelled with her parents to many different countries before her father's untimely death 5 years ago, Jane was not quite so eager to watch the arrivals as her pupil was. Indeed, she would much rather finish their lesson, so she could check to see if the post had arrived. Only yesterday she'd received another rejection for the detective novel she hoped to have published. Since she and her mother had been left penniless when her father died, the money she'd earn as a writer would allow her to leave governessing and make an independent life for herself. But that could only happen if a publisher decided to take a chance on her book. "You've only to finish writing a page about the most profitable agricultural region of Portugal, Margaret, and you'll be free to gaze upon your father's guests to your heart's content," she coaxed, guiding her own focus back to their lessons. On days like today, Jane wished she felt a true calling for the teaching profession. But as grateful as she was to Lord Guildford for offering her a job when she needed one most, she wasn't particularly enamoured of the occupation when her pupil was a reluctant one. "But Mr. Halliwell, there are probably Portuguese people arriving on our very doorstep this moment," the girl said with a pout. "Why can't I observe them? Isn't that how scientists work?" There were far too many ways to object to Margaret's suggestion that she examine her father's guests as if they were animals at the zoo for Jane to possibly find a place to start. So instead, she chose to compromise. "If I come and look out the window with you for a few minutes, will you promise to work on your essay?" The girl looked mulish for a moment, but, perhaps realising this was the best she was likely to get, she nodded.